My name is David, and I need to tell you about the biggest crisis my marriage has ever faced. What my wife Jessica did behind my back almost destroyed everything we'd built together over 7 years. When I found out she wanted both at once, I felt like my entire world was collapsing. But the truth about what actually happened is nothing like what you're thinking right now. Let me start from the beginning so you understand how this nightmare unfolded. Jessica and I met in college and got married right after graduation. We'd been together for 7 years, and I thought I knew everything about her. She was my best friend, my partner, my everything. We had our struggles like any couple, but I never, ever suspected she was keeping something from me. It started about 3 months ago. Jessica began acting strange. She was secretive with her phone, always angling it away from me when she was texting. She started going out more often, sometimes not coming home until late at night. When I'd ask where she'd been, she'd give vague answers, just out with friends or running errands. Then came the financial irregularities. I noticed withdrawals from our joint account that I couldn't explain. $300 here, $500 there. When I asked her about it, she became defensive. It's our money, David. I can spend it. I know, but what are you spending it on? These are big amounts. Just stuff I needed. Why are you interrogating me? The secrecy was eating me alive. I started imagining the worst. Was she having an affair? Was she in some kind of trouble? I didn't want to be that husband who snoops, but I was desperate for answers. One evening, I came home early from work. Jessica's car was in the driveway, and I could hear voices coming from our bedroom. My heart stopped. I crept quietly up the stairs, my hands shaking. The bedroom door was slightly open, and I could hear Jessica talking to someone. But it wasn't just one voice responding. There were two male voices in our bedroom with my wife. I know this is a lot, Jessica was saying, but I really want both. I've thought about it for weeks, and I can't choose between you two. My blood turned to ice. Both? She wanted both of them? Are you sure? One male voice asked. This is a big commitment. I'm absolutely sure, Jessica replied. I know it's unconventional, but I think I can handle both at once. I've done research, and plenty of people do it successfully. I felt like I was going to be sick. My wife was in our bedroom with two men, discussing some kind of arrangement where she'd have both of them. The room started spinning. What about your husband? The other male voice asked. Does he know? Not yet, Jessica admitted, and I could hear the guilt in her voice. I've been trying to figure out how to tell him. I know he's going to be shocked. This isn't something he's going to expect. That was it. I couldn't listen anymore. I burst through the bedroom door, ready to confront this betrayal, ready to see my wife with two other men. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. Jessica was sitting on our bed fully clothed, and the two men in our room were a representative from an animal shelter and a veterinarian. On the bed between them were two of the most adorable puppies I'd ever seen. David, Jessica jumped up, looking guilty. You're home early. I stood there, mouth open, trying to process what I was seeing. What is this? I can explain, Jessica said quickly. These are Max and Charlie. They're brothers, and the shelter needs to rehome them together because they've never been separated. I've been visiting them for weeks, and I fell in love with both of them. I know we talked about getting one dog eventually, but I couldn't choose between them, and they need to stay together. So I've been trying to figure out how to tell you that I want to adopt both. Both puppies? I said weakly, my legs suddenly feeling like jelly. Yes, I know it's a lot, and I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid you'd say no. I've been saving money from our account for the adoption fees, vet visits, supplies. That's where the money's been going. And I've been meeting with the shelter and the vet to make sure we can handle two dogs at once. The shelter representative stood up. I'm sorry if we caused any confusion. Jessica has been incredibly thorough in her research. She wanted to make sure she understood what it would take to care for two dogs simultaneously before approaching you. I sank down onto the edge of the bed, relief and embarrassment washing over me in waves. So this isn't... Not what? Jessica looked confused. Then her eyes widened. Oh my God, David, what did you think was happening? I heard you say you wanted both, and there were two men's voices at our bedroom, and you've been so secretive lately. I put my head in my hands. I thought you were having an affair with two guys. There was a moment of stunned silence, and then Jessica started laughing. Not a little chuckle, full on, bent over, tears streaming down her face laughing. You thought I was having an affair with two men at once? In our bedroom? In the middle of the afternoon? The vet was also trying not to laugh. Maybe we should give you two some privacy. No, wait, I said, finally starting to see the humor in the situation. You're here about the dogs. Tell me about the dogs. What followed was a 30-minute conversation about Max and Charlie, two 6-month-old Golden Retriever mixed brothers who'd been surrendered to the shelter when their elderly owner went into a nursing home. The shelter had a policy of trying to keep bonded pairs together, and Jessica had been visiting them twice a week for the past month. I wanted to surprise you, Jessica explained after the shelter rep and vet left, with a promise to return the next day for our answer. I'd been building up to this perfect moment where I'd bring you to meet them and you'd fall in love with them like I did, and we'd adopt them together. But then I realized I needed to get all the information first. Costs, vet care, training requirements. I wanted to show you I'd thought it through. So all the secrecy was me planning this surprise and making sure we could actually handle two dogs. The money I was withdrawing was going into a separate account for dog expenses. I have receipts for everything. The late nights were me at the shelter, spending time with them. The mysterious texts were from the shelter coordinator and the vet. I felt like the world's biggest idiot. I'm so sorry. I should have just asked you directly what was going on instead of assuming the worst. And I should have just told you from the beginning instead of trying to make it a surprise. I can see now how suspicious it all looked. We sat there on the bed, and that's when I really looked at the photos Jessica had of the puppies. Max and Charlie were absolutely adorable. Golden fur, floppy ears, and in every photo, they were cuddled together. They really have to stay together? I asked. The shelter says they've never been apart. When they tried to separate them for different potential adopters, both dogs became extremely anxious. They're a bonded pair. I looked at my wife, at her hopeful expression, at the photos of these two puppies who needed a home together. Okay, let's adopt them, both of them. Jessica's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? You're not mad about me keeping it secret? I'm not thrilled about the secrecy, but I understand why you did it. And honestly, after what I was imagining, finding out it's just about adopting puppies is the best possible outcome. She hugged me tight. I'm sorry I made you worry. I was just so excited about surprising you. Next time you want to surprise me with something that requires this much planning, maybe give me a hint so I don't think you're running off with two guys. She laughed. Deal. The next day, we officially adopted Max and Charlie. The moment they bounded into our house, tails wagging, immediately making themselves at home, I knew we'd made the right decision. They were indeed inseparable. They ate together, played together, and slept curled up against each other. But I had to tell someone about the misunderstanding. That weekend, we had dinner with my brother Tom and his wife. You will not believe what happened this week, I started, and told them the whole story. By the time I got to the part where I burst into the bedroom expecting to find my wife with two men and instead found puppies, Tom was laughing so hard he was crying. You thought Jessica was having a two-guy affair? Jessica? The woman who gets anxious about returning items to stores? In my defense, all the evidence pointed that way. The secrecy, the money, the late nights, the two male voices in our bedroom. Talking about puppies, Tom wheezed. She wanted both puppies. Jessica was laughing too. You should have seen his face when he burst in. He looked ready to fight two men, and instead he found Max and Charlie. Speaking of, Tom said, where are these home-wrecking puppies? We brought out Max and Charlie, who immediately won everyone over. Tom's wife fell in love with them instantly. They're adorable, she cooed. And you really can't separate them? Nope, Jessica said. They come as a package deal, which is what caused this whole mess. I wanted both, couldn't choose just one. And David thought you wanted both men, Tom added helpfully. Can we please never mention that part again? I groaned. But, of course, we mentioned it constantly. It became one of our favorite stories to tell at gatherings. The time David thought his wife was having an affair, but she was actually just planning to adopt puppies. My coworkers heard about it, our neighbors heard about it, even our parents heard about it. Everyone had the same reaction. Initial shock at the setup, then relief and laughter at the reality. "I have to ask," my mother said when she heard the story. "David, what were you going to do when you burst into that room? Did you have a plan?" Honestly, no. I was running on pure emotion. I just knew I had to confront the situation. And instead, you confronted two puppies. Best possible outcome, really. The incident actually improved our marriage in a weird way. We had a long talk about communication and trust. Jessica admitted she'd gotten so caught up in creating the perfect surprise that she hadn't considered how her behavior looked. I admitted I should have just asked her directly what was going on, instead of jumping to conclusions. "From now on," Jessica said, "if I'm planning something that requires secrecy, I'll at least tell you I'm planning a surprise so you don't think I'm doing something terrible. And I promise to trust you and ask questions before assuming the worst." Max and Charlie became an integral part of our family. They really did need to be together. On the rare occasions when we had to take one to the vet without the other, the one left behind would pace and whine until his brother returned. They were bonded in a way that was beautiful to see. 6 months later, Jessica surprised me again, this time with a positive pregnancy test. "Please tell me you're not keeping this one secret," I joked. No secrets this time, though I have been researching how to prepare dogs for a new baby. Jessica. Kidding, mostly. Friends asked if we were worried about having 2 large dogs and a baby. The truth was, Max and Charlie were so gentle and well-trained that we weren't concerned at all. And we were right. When our daughter Emma was born, those dogs became her protectors and constant companions. There's a photo we have framed in our living room. Emma as a newborn, sleeping peacefully between Max and Charlie, who are curled protectively around her. Everyone who sees it comments on how sweet it is. And then I tell them the story of how we adopted the dogs, how Jessica wanted both at once, how I misunderstood spectacularly, how our marriage almost fell apart over what turned out to be puppies. So when you heard your wife say she wanted both at once, people always ask, "You really thought she meant 2 men?" In my defense, I always reply, she never said she was talking about dogs. Jessica always adds, "And in my defense, I never thought my husband would assume I was having some kind of affair. I was talking about adopting puppies." Our daughter Emma is 3 now. She's growing up with Max and Charlie, and I can't imagine our family without them. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Jessica had only wanted 1 dog. Would I have ever known about her secret shelter visits? Would we have had that crisis of miscommunication? But then I look at Max and Charlie, inseparable as always, and I'm grateful Jessica wanted both. I'm grateful she couldn't choose. I'm grateful for the misunderstanding that taught us to communicate better. Though I still tease her about it. When she's making any kind of decision, I'll ask, "Are you sure you don't want both? Because last time you wanted both, it caused quite the drama." She always laughs. The only thing I want both of now is peace and quiet, which is impossible with 2 dogs and a toddler. So yes, my wife wanted both at once. And when I found out, I thought my marriage was over. But she wasn't talking about men. She was talking about 2 adorable puppies who needed a home together. It was the most innocent thing in the world that looked like the most scandalous thing imaginable. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Except maybe I'd ask her to be less secretive about surprise puppy adoptions in the future.